Good evening. On behalf of Veterans in Politics, we want to thank you very much for coming in. This is our endorsement interview for Las Vegas Justice of the Peace Department number 6. Just to give you a brief bio of how this process works, each one of the panel members will give like a 30-second introduction of ourselves, just so you understand who's asking the questions. Typically, the way it works is a candidate will be given a minute and 30 seconds to introduce themselves, and then 2 minutes to respond to panel members' questions. Jessica, you'll be given a little more time if you would like to introduce yourself, since your opponent in this race decided not to show up. I want to make it very clear, though, he was invited. All candidates are invited to this endorsement process. Now, I also want to disclose the fact that just because you're the only candidate here tonight that's answering our questions does not mean you get an automatic endorsement.
I appreciate that.
Okay. And then also one more disclosure. This endorsement interview is being sponsored by Timothy Treffinger, who's running for Clark County District Attorney. That does not mean that you're endorsing Mr. Treffinger. Okay.
I appreciate that disclosure because, we as judicial candidates are not allowed to endorse other candidates. So I appreciate that disclosure to keep me on the right side of ethics.
Okay. Thank you. With that being said, I'll go ahead and start with Frank if he'd like to introduce himself.
How you doing? I'm Frank Friends, father, courts right, family activist, vice president of my daughter's PTA for her school.
I'm Robert Faust. I'm a third generation VFW. My grandfather was in World War I. My father was in World War II. I fought in Vietnam. I spent 4 years in federal penitentiary for drug smuggling. I am the author of 2 books, currently on sale right now. They're available through Amazon, the Outlaw League, and the Last Draftees.
My name is Jim Jonas. I've been a member of Veterans in Politics since 2008, and I have a special interest in the judicial system. And I think in the state of Nevada, people don't take the judiciary as seriously as they should. With that introduction, would you go ahead and introduce yourself, why you're running for this particular seat, and why you are seeking our endorsement?
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Jessica Goodey. I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department 6. The reason I decided to run, I want to take you back to August of 2020. I had been fighting my client's case for a year worth of litigation. We finally get to trial. Trial was 3 hours from start to finish. It wasn't super complicated. The plaintiff testified and the defendant testified, and the judge tells us she will get us an answer shortly. Well, 1 week turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month, turned into 6 months. 6 months of my client waiting on the judge to do her job. That's the moment I decided to put my name in the race because we need our courts to do better than that. A little bit about me. I've been an attorney here for 12 years. I actually came out to law school. I've been here for 15 years. I came to Las Vegas having never set foot here. With my 2-year-old son, I was a single mom at the time, put myself through law school. And this community has been so amazing to me. It's where I've raised my son. It's where I met my husband. And we've just raised our family here. And now you guys are just stuck with us. I don't know what to tell you. We're not going anywhere. And the reason I am seeking Veterans in Politics endorsement, Mr. Faust, you said that you fought in Vietnam. So did my dad. He was a Marine. And it was because of his service that I was actually able to go to college. And so what our veterans give and sacrifice and what their families sacrifice is there's no way to pay that back. And so any service that I can do, and if I can be of service to you on the bench, and if you can and support me in that, that's the biggest thing in the world to me.
Okay, I guess I'll start with the first question for you. A lot of people get confused about all these different judicial seats. I guess I'm going to be nice to the voters and give that as kind of an excuse why they don't pay attention to judges. But what exactly does the Justice of the Peace do in Las Vegas, Department 6? What would be your role?
So I actually have a whole 30-minute presentation on this that I give to help educate people, but I'll give you the abridged version. So Justice Court as a whole is we call it the People's Court, but it's our lower level court. It's a court of limited jurisdiction. And what that means is it only handles certain cases. Department 6 is currently our civil law department. So it handles cases for money, people suing other people, up to $15,000. So it's what most people think of as small claims. On the criminal side, it handles all first appearances for all criminal matters that happen within the township of Las Vegas. And so that's city of and unincorporated, just depending upon where you're at. So if it's a misdemeanor, it will be handled all the way through Justice Court. The Justice Court, Justice of the Peace, would be the one deciding the case, sentencing you, presiding over the trial, all of that. If it's a felony, you'll have your initial appearance, preliminary hearing, and then it will go up to our district court level. We call it the People's Court because if you were likely to come into contact with an elected official, it's probably going to be your Justice of the Peace, because we handle, again, the small claims, the criminal matters, traffic matters, landlord-tenant, breaches of contract for, you take your car to a shop and they don't do the repair work, or the client doesn't pay you or something like that. So all of the things that are likely to come up in your life outside of family law, that's all dealt with at the Justice Court level.
Jessica,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here today. How do you feel about the bail situation? Seeing how you're the first person to seize the perp, and you said bail. So how do you feel that bail situation?
So as a judicial candidate, we're not allowed to take positions on how we feel about the law. Our job as a judge is to enforce the law as it is. So I serve as a fill-in judge in the Las Vegas Municipal Court. I'm appointed to serve in the Justice Court, but because I'm running, I can't actually sit right now. So I make bail decisions. And so what we have to do as a judge when we are considering these things is take into the totality of the circumstances. There's a new case out that says the state has the burden to prove that bail is what is the least restrictive means of ensuring that the defendant will return to court, taking into consideration the safety of the community. So we have to take into all of that into account. We have to look at the safety of the community, and that's one of probably the most important things. So you look at, has the defendant been arrested before? Is this their third or fourth or fifth dangerous, violent crime? Do they have a history of not appearing? Are they likely to flee? Do they have the means to flee? There's all kinds of things we have to take into account, and it varies on a case-by-case basis. So that's something, it's not how I feel about it. Unfortunately, I'm not even allowed to tell you how I feel about it. I can tell you it was my job to enforce the law, and we have to take all of that into consideration.
So you enforce the law and you set bail for things like that. You get a lot of scuffles, fights, frays, assaults. A lot of people don't know what a fray is, but you do. There's actually a law in other states that's implemented called mutual combat. And it's if any time any two people decide without weapons that they are going to fight, and it is recorded and documented that they both said yes, no matter the outcome of the fight, hospitalization, death, nothing like that, neither party could be charged. Would something like that help free up a lot more time for you guys to focus on other cases and stop wasting so much of the police time and maybe calm down people who run their mouth a little too much?
So I'm going to give you the good old-fashioned lawyer answer of it depends. So it absolutely could, and there are situations where it would not be appropriate. But again, that's one of those things we as judges, especially at this lower court, we don't have the ability to change law, and that's really not our job. And so if that law is on our books here in Nevada, and I don't think that it is, that's not one that I've seen. You're shaking your heads for anybody who's not looking over there. That's what I thought. So that's not something I would in this position be able to take into consideration until it's passed. And so if that's something you advocate for, all of your assembly district are up for re-election right now. So go find them. And if you don't like what they have to say about that, go find their opponent and talk to them about it, because they're looking to talk to people right now too.
All right. My next question is, how frustrating is it for you to have to run for judge and sit in front of a panel like us that are trying to ask you questions that you honestly probably can't answer because it might break a judicial canon? So why are you running for judge? Because it's got to be so frustrating to try to explain to people that aren't attorneys like yourself.
So this part isn't frustrating at all. Actually, this is probably the best part about running, is any opportunity to talk to people and educate them, because I believe that our judicial system is so important that we need to be educated about it, not just once you're in the system, but before you get there. So this campaign is really giving me a platform to be able to do that and to meet a lot of different people that I probably wouldn't have met, and have the ability to have this conversation where I now get to talk to all of your viewers and explain that. So I actually just did a Zoom call with a doctor, her name is Dr. Sandra Cosgrove, but about why judges are elected. And she gave the whole history and things like that. And what I can say is, so it's frustrating to not be able to answer the questions because it feels like I'm being evasive, right? As a lawyer, that's probably one of my least favorite things, when people don't answer the question. And so when I'm in trial and somebody doesn't answer my question, I say, no, sir, that's not what I asked. Answer my question. You don't get to evade it. So I feel like that's what I'm doing. But I also understand the reason behind it, because the best judges, you don't know what their personal views are, because that's not their job. And so I understand the reason behind those ethical rules, and I want to make sure I stay on the right side of those. So there's other frustrating things about running for a judge, but this isn't it. I love this part.
What is your religious preference? And would you ever let your religion cloud your judgment? And how are you financing your campaign?
I'm sorry, the last part.
How are you financing your campaign?
God, I thought you said who is, and maybe that was the same thing. So I am a woman of Christian faith. I attend church regularly. However, again, my personal beliefs don't come into play. I have had situations serving as an alternate judge where I have to enforce a law that I may or may not agree with. That's my job. And until that law changes, that will continue to be my job. Again, I think that that's where judges get in trouble, is where they try to take their own personal beliefs and make other people follow those, or change the law or interpret the law to fit their own personal beliefs as to what they want the law to be. So no, I don't think that I have worked really hard, both in my practice and in my judicial experience over the last 3 years, to really kind of compartmentalize that. The finance, thank you. So I am fundraising. It's mostly attorneys. I've had quite a few businesses, actually. I'm a business owner, and so I do a lot of business networking. And then candidly, I'm self-funding a large portion of it.
All right. So my next question, I'm going to switch gears a little bit from funding. Okay. So here's that thing that, it started with family court, and it kind of frustrated me, the expansion of family court and how we have so many judges in family court now compared to what we used to. But I'm concerned about that at the JP level now, because of the fact that we have a lot of people running for judges, and you're one of them, that basically has only a criminal background. Or, I mean, a civil background. So doesn't that make it harder for the chief judge to assign cases appropriately? wouldn't that just lead to the expansion of more departments if we're electing people that only have basically experience, whether it be civil or criminal?
So as it relates to justice court, it's not a concern there because the expansion is based upon our population. So we actually just added a new department in justice court this year. It'll be Department 16. It's the first one that's been added in, I can't remember how long, but it's based upon the population of the township of Las Vegas. And what that basically means is anybody with Las Vegas in your address when you write it out. So it's not expanded based upon the experiences of the judge or the qualifications of the judges or the lack of qualifications or experience. It's solely based in justice court based on population. Say lack of experience in both civil. The lack of experience in both civil and criminal is something that should cause concern, right? What I will say, though, is it's really difficult to find somebody who has experience in criminal and in civil and that does it well. You can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's not who we want to be our judges. And so and that's why I'm running. So Justice Court Department 6 is currently a civil law department. And because I had that experience in there, that's why I'm running. There is the chance that it could be criminal next year. That changes, essentially every year. However, I've known for the last 5 or so years I wanted to run for judge. And knowing that I had only practiced civil law, I knew that criminal was going to be, a downside, that I would need to get some experience in that. And I've handled a random criminal case here or there for friends or family or something. So that's why I actually put my name in for appointment to serve as an alternate judge in the Las Vegas Municipal Court and in the Justice Court, because I knew that I wanted to get that experience and learn from the sitting judges, not while I'm on the bench as my full-time job, but to get that experience before I get there.
So as an alternate judge, you would hear criminal cases. Nevada is a death penalty state, believe it or not. We haven't executed anybody, I think, in 50 years, and we just spent like $14 million on a brand new execution chamber, which is awesome for the taxpayers. But we have 3 cases recently in Nevada. You have the Home Depot case where the guy shot the Home Depot guy and went to Arizona. You have the Lee's Discount Liquor where they shot the clerk, and you have the Ezekiel case where he was stabbed in the heart breaking up a fight. All 3 people 100% guilty, right there on video, evidence, everything like that. Would you be for a fast track in cases like that to execution instead of having the families pay taxes that house and feed the people who took away their loved ones, only in cases that are 100% proven?
So that's again one of those questions that I unfortunately can't answer as to how I would deal with any specific case or how I would view the cases that are proven all criminal. So, and those wouldn't be dealt with in justice court. Those go up to the district court level. So it would start in the justice court, but then would be bound over to district court, and then sentencing would come from there. There are, certain appellate rights and things that are written into our Constitution and into our case law that defendants are entitled to, and whether they choose to exercise those or not. Again, our job as a judge is to enforce the law, whether we agree with it or not. So again, I wouldn't probably be dealing with those other than at the very first appearance level. Justice court handles misdemeanors, and so you can't be jailed for more than a year on any given offense.
Well, thank you. So I actually have a follow-up on that. When does something that ends up in justice court or muni court get bound over to district court? What are the parameters for that? Because a lot of people are confused. Sorry. No,
that was my fault. I apologize for interrupting. It depends upon the status of the case. Some of them can be after the preliminary hearing. Some of them, if they know that it's going to go, they can just essentially jump right up there. So it really kind of depends on the case. Muni court, however, doesn't deal with felonies. That is a misdemeanor only because it deals with misdemeanor infractions involving the city code within the city of Las Vegas. But so if it is going to be a felony, that would start in justice court and go over to the district court. It wouldn't hit any of our muni courts.
So you deal with mainly misdemeanors and things like that.
Correct.
So a lot of people are getting their homes broken into. People are squatting, ruining people's properties while they're away. And they seem to have more rights than the owners of these sanctuaries that they should be able to come home to and feel safe. And I know for a fact, because I've arrested people that broke into places and things like that, I see them 2 days later, 3 days later, back in the street, breaking into another home, squatting in another place. What are you guys able to do about that, and what would you do?
So some of that happens, we get that a lot. Somebody's arrested and then they spend the night and then they're turned around and back out on the street, or they're turned back out on the street even before the paperwork is filed. A lot of that actually happens before it comes to the judge. And so there is a pretrial services report that is done when they are arrested and booked. And then they look at that, and if they don't have any priors, or if it's not violent, or whatever their criteria is, a lot of them will be released OR right then and there. Or if they're able to post the bond, the standard bond, if they're able to post that, then they would be out before they even see the judge. So some of that we can't as judges do anything about, because that happens before the case even comes to us. When it does come to us, that's what we talked about again with the bail considerations, looking at repeat offenders, the safety of the community, their likelihood of returning to court to answer for their crimes, the likelihood of reoffending, all of those types of things. We have to take that into consideration. I can't tell you how I would rule, because each case I have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but those are the things we look at.
Okay.
You have a smile on your face that makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I got to ask this question. It's kind of a loaded question. First off, hey, you're running it. We can debate all day whether judges should be elected or not. It's state law. It is what it is. That's fine. But my next question for you is, what do you think? And I wouldn't ask this if your opponent bothered to show up, but I'm going to ask it since he didn't. What do you think it says about somebody's possible judicial temperament when they're not even willing to show up for an endorsement interview?
And I don't think it has to do with the temperament, but I think it has to do with the work ethic. And one of the things that I see, especially sometimes at lower court levels, we see candidates who are running because they need a few more years in the system to get retirement, or they're tired of practicing law and are just looking for an easier everyday job that, on the taxpayer's dime. I think that speaks volumes as to work ethic and how they view this job as almost almost like an entitlement more than anything. And so for me, one of the things I spent a lot of times in the primary, I spent a lot of time at the polls talking to voters as they were coming in, because I think it's important people know who they're talking to. And as many people that'll listen to me talk, I'll talk to them. And one of the things they're like, why are you out here? This can't be the best use of your time. And I said, it absolutely is, because being a judge is hard work. And that hard work doesn't start when I take the bench. It starts right now. I need to earn your vote. And the other part of that is we don't get a lot of people with my background and experience running for, especially these lower level courts. I run my own business. And so I understand. I am the marketing manager and the HR person and the attorney, and I wear all of these hats. And so some days, like today, my day started at 4:30 this morning, and we're looking at 7:30 right now, and I'm not done for the night. And so we need people that are willing to put in that work and put in that effort. And if you're not willing to do that on the campaign trail, you're not going to do that when you're on the bench.
So we've seen it personally, me and Jim, several times, going to family court and other courts that judges work 2, maybe 3 days out of the week. Not much going on there. And it's always closed. And you talking about work ethic and the taxpayer's dollar. If you do win this seat, would you be
When I
okay.
win.
Okay. So when you win this and that you earn the people's vote, would you be okay with maybe promoting a freeze on whatever your pay is now? Like you don't get lower, but whatever your current pay is for your judgeship in this district, it would stay there for 8 years, so you can start showing people you're working on crime, you're working on this, you're earning our money and our taxpayer dollars, and you're not asking for anything extra other than our vote and to come back and show us you can do the job again.
So that's an interesting proposition. In general, I'm not opposed to that. But what I will say is with Justice Court, sometimes the judges will ask for raises. And I'm trying to think, it's been a minute since I looked at it, but maybe 10 years since the Justice Court judges have gotten a raise. I could be wrong on that date, but it's been quite a few years. And so it certainly hasn't kept up with inflation or anything like that. I think that the bigger emphasis is on holding our judges accountable and holding just our public servants accountable. So things like, you can request access to see what time of day that I swipe in and swipe out. Am I there? And Justice Court has a 4-day work week. It's on a Monday to Thursday, 10 hours a day. And of course, with judges, there are days that we take the warrant phone for a week at a time when we are on for 24 hours a day. There's no break in that. And so during those, you're probably not in the office from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever it is. But taking a look at that, and when we see judges that are taking 6 months to make a decision on a 3-hour trial, we got to have more accountability than that. And there's not a lot of ways we can hold judges accountable other than by somebody running against them and essentially taking their job. That's why I'm doing this, because I see a problem in the system and I want to be part of the solution and not just complain about the problem.
So if I had a traffic ticket, and it was a minor ticket, except for I didn't have a driver's license with me. But anyway, the fine was $300 or something like that, $150, and I went to pay it twice. Both times the place was closed, the windows were closed, and so I never paid it. And now it's $586. And what would you do about that if I came before you?
So that's one of the things. Again, I can't tell you exactly what I would do. Because I'm not allowed to. But that's one of the things where judges need to look at the totality of the circumstances. And if you can, if you were saying that you came here and you tried to pay it and you were unable, and I know during COVID, I think the traffic windows might still be closed a lot of the time. They're open again. So because we moved to an all online system now, or primarily online, as a way to deal with some of our traffic ticket backup. But we got to look at all of those things. And if you tried to do what you could do, maybe you're entitled to a break. I can't tell you because I'm not a judge and I'm not ruling on your case, but
there should be something done. There should be something done on a permanent basis, to solidify the whole situation. I mean, it's not an individual thing. You have people that are convicted of a crime and are sentenced to something or fined to it, and they go to pay the fines and they can't, and then they get one of these fine collection companies from Phoenix, and they rake you. I mean, there has to be something done about that, and judges have that discretion.
So I've had that situation come before me in Muni court when I was sitting at a Muni court. The circumstances always vary. Either they lost their job and they weren't able to pay, they were disabled and weren't able to pay, they tried to pay, they weren't able to, so they got a warrant fee on it. Judges do have that discretion. And so if in the situations where the guy or the person showed me that I tried to do this, I've done everything else, I've stayed out of trouble, I met all of these, I can pay the fine today, there's just this other thing, this other problem, we do have that discretion to waive the warrant fee or to waive the additional fees or whatever the case may be.
So you said you haven't really seen a lot of criminal cases. You know what I mean? So one of the main predictors, I believe 85% of all incarcerated persons are raised by single mothers. So is the recidivism rate. Same thing, raised by single mothers. And that's what you would see. You'd see a lot of people coming back to your court, repeat. Maybe some misdemeanors, maybe some felonies. But is there any form of nonprofit that you've ever seen work to help these people? And would you, as a judge, start using that to help and maybe even volunteer some of your own personal time? Maybe you don't got to name the nonprofit, but willing to give your time to give back to the people.
Absolutely. So there's two parts of that. So it's the professional capacity first. I am a firm believer in the role of our diversionary courts and our specialty courts. And so in justice court, we have the vet court, we have the community court, we have these different courts. And then in muni court, and again, because I've sat down there more often over the last 3 years, I'm more familiar with those. But we have our Hope Court, we have our WIN Court. And so Hope Court is habitual offenders. WIN Court is women in need to get women off of the streets. And it's, we have our young offender court. So for kids that are 18 to 24 that are just starting the pathway down the wrong life. And if we can get to them before it gets too bad and help them turn their life around. And so it's, it puts them in housing. It helps them, get the services they need. It gets all of those types of things. Mental health court is one of them. So justice court doesn't currently have a mental health court. So I am a huge advocate for increasing or expanding and adding to our specialty courts that we have in justice court, and borrowing a page out of the city of Las Vegas's book and taking some of those ideas and bringing them over. On a personal level, probably the best part about this campaign is I've gotten to know so many more organizations that are doing great things in our community. And I try to do as much as I possibly can. It's a little hectic right now, but there's definitely a couple that I'm looking forward to being able to devote some more time to once things calm down a little bit after the election.
Okay, Jessica.
You got that smile again.
According to judicial canons, you can answer this question. What's your political party affiliation?
I'm currently... So I can answer... Well, I was going to answer, and let me tell you. So I can answer, technically. My concern is because it's being live streamed, it can be viewed as running on a political platform. If you'd like me to answer it, I will. Would you like me to answer it?
Yeah. No, and I'm not going to push you on it. Okay. Sure. Robert says yes.
I'm currently a registered Democrat.
Okay. So we were teasing about it a while back. So viewers and listeners need to understand why I asked you that question. It wasn't a gotcha question for you in particular. We had an endorsement interview last month, I believe. And I was very disappointed with one of the candidates that's running for judge, Levitt. He's not a judge. He's running for judge. He was here with Judge Gall. And he talked about his political affiliation. And I found that interesting since that's violating a judicial canon before he even gets elected. So I just wanted to ask you that question. But to get to the heart of the matter, so to speak, on this one, how does it frustrate you running for? You have to get elected. And one of the things I always found interesting is when I go to political events, we would have judges show up to Republican events, and then I wouldn't see those same judges at Democrat events. And now political parties, the Republican County Party and the Democrat County Party, are actually sending out lists of who you should vote for judge. What have you done to kind of curb that?
So I go to both sides because, number one, I don't think any single political party solves all of the problems. There are good things and bad things in both. And what I always say actually is I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And depending upon the year and the election and a lot of a variety of facts, that will determine who I vote for where on the ticket, right? I've never been in my entire life a straight up and down the ticket voter. That has nothing to do with my judicial campaign. But so I go to both sides of the aisle and everything in between, because when you come into my courtroom, I'm never going to ask you that question. I am never going to try to figure out what political party you are. And if for some reason you volunteer that, or you're wearing I'm a Republican shirt or I'm a Democrat shirt, I'm never going to treat you differently based on that. And my job as a judge is to serve the entire community. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever the case may be. And I can't do that if I'm not hearing what all of the different issues are. That's what we do as judges, right? We hear both sides and make a decision from there. And I can't do that if I only listen to one side. We are in a nonpartisan race. And so I think we should be going to both sides.
So you will see civil and criminal cases. The one group you will probably almost never see, because they commit less crimes than any group ever, even less than the police, is CCW holders. Statistically, they just don't commit crime. So with that being said, are you for or against constitutional carry and the crime rate that it drops wherever it's implemented at?
You keep asking me, am I for or against, knowing that I can't answer them, but I will. It is allowed in our Constitution, and my job is to enforce the Constitution. I believe in our Constitution, and that's my job to enforce it. So it says the right shall not be abridged, and my job is to enforce that law.
Okay. Frank, you have any more questions? Okay. So first thing I want to do, Jessica, is I want to thank you very much for coming in. And if you don't mind just giving a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just look into the camera, tell people what office you're running for, give out all your campaign information, how they can get involved with your campaign, and why they should vote for you.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Jessica Goodey. I am running for Las Vegas Justice Court Department 6. And so if you have Las Vegas in your address, when you write it out and it says Las Vegas, I am on your ballot. And I would encourage you to vote for me, and I ask for your vote. I am the most qualified candidate in this race. I am the best suited to jump in on day one and get right to work. I've practiced in this court. I've worked over the last 3 years to gain judicial experience, both in civil matters and in criminal matters. And I'm the only candidate in this race that can say that I've actually presided over civil and criminal matters. So if you want to get involved in my campaign, find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Jessica Goodey for Judge. I'm not super creative when it comes to that. So you just Google me, you'll find me, you'll find my business. I've tried to make it as easy as possible. And if there are any questions I can answer for you about my campaign, please reach out. I am here to answer questions. And I love the opportunity to talk to voters and see if I can actually earn your vote. So again, my website is jessicagoodeyforjudge.com. I think that's my Facebook handle, my Instagram handle. I think my Twitter is jmgoodey. I don't do Twitter a lot. I'm not even sure that's how you say it, but it is there. And then my number is 702-703-1888. That is my office number. So feel free to call or text that or shoot me an email. And then I would actually like to invite all of you. I am having a general election season kickoff and fundraiser next Thursday at Via Brazil, which is at the corner of Charleston and Fort Apache. We're going to be doing a drawing for 2 Raiders tickets and 4 VGK tickets. It's free to enter, free to come have some drinks with us and have some appetizers, mix and mingle. We should have a pretty good turnout, and I'd love an opportunity to get to know you. If you would like to volunteer for my campaign, I will take all the help that I can get. And what I always say, just to wrap it up, is if you want the courts to get better, get Goodey.
Thank you very much, Jessica. With that, that'll conclude our endorsement interview for Las Vegas Justice of the Peace, Department 6. Thank you.
Thank you so much.